All right, welcome back to Prestige Motorsports. Today we're going to cover our 598 Big Block Chevy Marine engine package. Now what I'm going to do is break this into 3 segments. I'll try and keep it as quick as possible, but primary reason we'll cover the complete combination, what it entails, then the specific goals that we met for the client, and then a recap of what the price for this listing, what that actually includes. All right, so this 598 basically starts with a solid foundation. It's going to be a World Products block. This is a 9/8 deck height, which is standard 454 deck height. The World Products block is stuffed with a 4340 crank from Eagle, as well as their H-beam rods with ARP 2000 bolts. And then it's got a J&E slug in it, which is a custom designed 2618 piston that actually includes lateral gas porting to keep the ring sealed to the bore in these big inch applications. This is also going to feature a hydraulic roller camshaft that's custom ground by us, as well as hydraulic roller lifters. This block features a drop-in style roller, which we'll discuss a little bit further. And then of course moving up, this particular application has an AFR 325cc head as cast, and it's utilizing a billet Scorpion endurance rocker arm. And up top here we've got a Wyand single plane manifold with a Dominator carburetor, MSD Pro Billet marine ignition, as well as the ignition box, and not seen here would include wires as well. So this again is a 598, swings a 4.5 inch stroke. And I did forget the pan down here, but this is a example of a KE pan, which is, they offer it in a 10 quart, 12 quart, and a 14 quart. We have chosen a 12 quart for this application. This is a specific pan for your offshore powerboats. And of course up front, beautiful Innovator's West balancer as well. So now what we'll do is we'll take a little bit closer look at the specific goals for this customer. Okay, so the specific goal for this particular customer was low RPM torque. He doesn't plan to turn it between about 45 and 5200, mainly a cruiser. Of course, I'm sure he'll hang it wide open, see what his top speed is, but it was more about cruising at a lower RPM range, which 1, the motor's going to last longer, and 2, the fuel economy would be much, much better. So generally speaking, going back to the block, we've chose the World Products block because of a couple of features. One being that it has the drop-in style lifter, which we've talked about before. Tie bar lifter designs, a retrofit lifter, basically they're heavier because you have a tie bar, and the interior bore finishes of those lifters generally aren't all that accurate. So you get clattering. Also when they bleed off, you lose performance, you lose mileage. So there's a lot of reasons that we really like using the World Products block, but we do like Dart, Brodex. They all have good quality product, but again, this one, because we can utilize a drop-in lifter. Okay, so also touching on the block, we said it's a 9/8 deck height, which is a standard 454. In order for his tailpipes to hit the transom correctly and the space he had between the twin engines, because this is a pair, there was no way that we could go to a tall deck. So let me again highlight, he's going to run this between say 45 and 5200. If he was going to run this thing balls out, you know, wide open throttle, 6500 RPM, bouncing 6 feet out of the water, what we probably would have done is designed this with a longer rod and used a taller deck. So again, this is specific to this particular application. So 4.5 inch stroke, as I mentioned, the Eagle crank, H-beam rods, J&E pistons, that's standard. Same with the block, that's standard. Then moving up, we chose the AFR 325 head. Generally, this combination would have a Brodex Dragon Slayer 320 as cast. Now, nowadays, right now, product availability, sometimes we need to make some changes. This customer opted to upgrade the cylinder head to the AFR 325. Now, it's an as cast runner, but it does have a full CNC chamber. So that's kind of a great upgrade because it helps with flame propagation and combustion properties. So We were able to use this cylinder head just slightly bigger, 5 cc's bigger on the runner, and of course it does include the Inconel exhaust valves, which every single Marine engine from us gets. And then moving on up, we've got the Y-end manifold. This is a little bit smaller plenum, a little bit smaller runner. So again, touching on what this was designed for, we have learned through our experience of R&D work that not always a bigger cylinder head is better or a bigger manifold is better. So we try to keep and limit the size of the manifold and the plenum area so we can keep those low-end torque numbers up. And of course, sitting on top is the Dominator. This is a customer supplied carburetor, and also he had supplied these valve covers. So I'll kind of touch on the valve cover, and again, going back to a guy that's going to cruise it versus going to run the tar out of it. So most Marine valve covers, like this slant edge design to clear the manifolds, or our 2-piece KE cover, they do not allow us to run a stud girdle on the rockers. So in a situation for this customer, a stud style rocker without a rocker bar is not going to be a problem for what his intended purpose is. Again, if he was going to run the tar out of it and be bouncing, off the rev limiter, launching this thing 6 feet out of the ocean, well, I would probably suggest that a guy go to a shaft rocker. So you've got Jessel has got a really nice Sportsman series. It's a pedestal bolt down. There's 1-piece rocker bar options from Jessel, T&D, as well as Scorpion. So those would be a viable upgrade depending on what the use would be. Again, he included the carburetor, so we spent a lot of time on the dyno to get this tuned correctly for a nice linear fuel curve. Included the Marine Pro billet distributor, and then of course he has his own wires. He also has his own ignition box and so forth. So now let's just recap this and what this price is going to cover as far as what you see here. So the price for this listing, what it's going to include, from the bottom up, is going to be that World Products block, Eagle 4340 crank, H-beam rods, J&E pistons, the Innovators West billet harmonic balancer, KE 12-quart oil pan. It would include the Dragon Slayer 320 head versus the AFR. Of course, you can upgrade to this head. It's going to include stud style rockers, which is a Scorpion rocker, full billet. Also would include a 2-piece KE cover. It's going to include the YN manifold, Dominator carburetor from Quick Fuel, MSD Pro billet, the wires and looms that would come underneath these manifolds here, also the ignition box, the coil, and a small hardware kit. Also, the listing includes the Imco PowerFlow exhaust, as well as the stainless risers that you see here. So because we're using a customer's engine for this listing, obviously, as I mentioned, he supplied these beautiful valve covers. He actually has his own manifolds. We just use these so you can get a real representation of kind of what you're purchasing. And I may have forgot, but it also is going to include that KE 12-quart pan. So a couple things that you can upgrade, obviously cylinder heads. We could look at different manifold options, different header or exhaust options, and specifically we have piston oilers and valve spring oiler plates that go between the valve covers. Those are also upgradable options. Once again, I hope this was helpful, and thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more.